Sup YouTube, it's Sup TCG here and welcome back to our TCG battle video on my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the best decks in the format and we're going to be ranking them all the way from D tier to S tier. That's going to be for the upcoming regionals, Louisville, Lille, you name it. Maybe there's even a special event left and right or a League Cup you're going to. These are going to be the decks you want to be looking out for. We're going to be giving some detailed advice on which decks I personally will be playing in this format. I'm going to give you also some tips and tricks and some tech cards that could be included in specific lists. So hopefully you guys are excited. If you are, let me know by rocking the hell out of the like button. Helps out in many ways. It is super effective, and subscribe for more daily Pokemon TCG videos heading your way. As I am personally going to the Lille Regionals in 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be posting some more gameplay footage of the most popular decks and that are doing well at the online scene. But for now, let's rank the best decks in the format. Also note is that rogue decks, for example, like Zoroark, VSTAR, and all those decks like Hydrapple are not included in this list. It's like a high tier stuff that we're going to be talking about, not like the rogue picks that sometimes could be doing reasonably well. It's a one-hit opportunity. But yeah, let's just dive into it. And I think personally in this format, there's, yeah, I'm gonna say S tiers. There's not gonna be that many S tiers in my opinion. So I think I could just slap down Raging Bolt as one of the S tier candidates. Raging Bolt, Ogerpon. What can we say about this deck? So first of all, you can win games by simply donking the opponent because you can attack on the very first turn going second. We are currently in a go first meta with tons and tons of Dusknoirs in the list. Think about Dusknoir, Palkia, Dusknoir, Terapagos, Dusknoir, Charizard, Dusknoir, Dragapult. You name it, Dusknoir is literally everywhere. But why is Raging Bolt so good is that it can attack going second, and most of these other lists want to be going first. Meaning you can get a surprise turn 1 win if the opponent only has one basic Pokemon. You can pretty much go to some crazy numbers on your very first turn going second with something like, for example, Professor Sawdust Vitality, Attach of Turn, Teal Dance, and out of nowhere there's so many energies in play that you can one-shot literally anything in the game. With the help of Squack Ability, Pokestop, Tracking Shoes, Radiant Greninja, Teal Dance, you can just pretty much draw half of your deck by the very first turn. It's pretty easy to find your Sawdust through the means of through the means of Pokegear and with Pokestop and a Tracking Shoe and a Squack Ability left and right, you can definitely find those Professor Sawdust. Palpad can shuffle the supporters back in. Now with the help of the Briar supporter, you can also catch some decks off guard when they're at exactly 2 prize cards. Sometimes the Teal Dance Ogerpon can actually get themselves an additional prize card when they knock you out. That could mean you can sometimes take 3 prizes against the Charizard EX when they are at exactly 2 prizes, or you can knock out a 1 prize Pokemon like a Radiant Charizard, for example, for 2 prizes instead of just a regular 1. I don't know if Briar is a must in this Raging Bolt deck currently, because typically when I'm playing Raging Bolt, I only have used it like once at like every single 20 games. You use it once. That's just so silly in my opinion, but it is an additional help and also could put some decks on their toes when they're gonna go for the 2-2 prize trade. Definitely against stuff like, for example, Gardevoir EX, even though that sees less and less play with all these Dusknoirs running around the field. Another cool thing about Raging Bolt is that I personally would be including some Bravery Charms. Not only can you protect your Pokemon with more HP, from stuff, for example, like a Terapagos. If you just Bravery Charm maybe 2 of your Teal Ogerpons, maybe you're playing 2 Bravery Charms, then they can no longer one-shot them with their unified beatdown attack, so that's cool. You can also protect your Radiant Greninja from getting Dusknoir KO'd, so there are definitely some things that the Bravery Charms could work, so there is that. Moving forward, I'm going to be putting Charizard Pidgeot. I don't know if I want to be putting it in tier S anymore. I'm going to be putting it in tier A. I think it is fine when it dropped down a tier, because with all these Dusknoirs running around, and also, the thing is that Charizard has not converted all too well in the last couple of big events. I think it is, turning down a little bit because of all the sniping capabilities. We saw Dragapult doing well, which is typically a really pretty rough matchup for Charizard. There is also still Regidrago VSTAR, which is in the format, but most importantly, Dusknoir is literally everywhere, meaning decks like Terapagos and Palkia just eat Charizard alive when those decks are going first. So that's why we're putting it all the way down to tier 8. It's not all the way down, but it is down. Let's talk about Palkia Dusknoir. I think this deck is very good. Stefan Ivanov really put this deck on the map, becoming 4th at the Dortmund Regionals, and I can definitely say here is that the deck has been performing quite well. We did make a video about it recently, showcasing what the deck is actually capable of, and with the help of course, the Pokestop, the Squawkabilly, and all the good, very aggressive turn 1, cards that allow you to draw cards. You're going to be able to establish 2 Dusknoirs ASAP, and then by the second turn you can use the star portal of the of the Palkia VSTAR to power up your Radiant Greninja, and boom. You might think, oh no, I'm weak to stuff like lightning Pokemon. Well, that's where the 101 line of Greninja EX comes into fruition, where you're going to be able to punish those. I'm thinking about stuff like, for example, Terapagos, which is actually weak to fighting, where you can use the Greninja EX, stuff like Iron Thorns, where you can use that as well. So this deck is now tier A in my opinion, because I think it's actually pretty good. Another tier A deck that recently got in there is Terapagos, and I'm actually going to be putting it on the high end of tier A. People like Tord Ratcliffe put it on the map. They even do a masterclass about it. They got 9th at the Dortmund Regionals. Could have even gotten higher if they didn't go for that risky ID right there. Asymmetrical top cut, you know how that goes. So 9th place Terapagos is one of the lists you should definitely take a look at, because a lot of people will copy paste that list, because this list, if it goes first, can be very, very crazy, with like the Noctowl searching out any card you want from the deck, the trainer cards that is. You can get yourself Candy, Dusknoir, then get yourself Candy Night Stretcher, get 2 Dusknoirs, they blow themselves up. You can then go for an Iono attack as well, and then by the the third turn, you can just use a Briar to end the game. That's why I think with all these Dusknoirs running around, Charizard really has it rough these days, because Charizard is also a deck that wants to just evolve their little Charmanders. They're also playing Dusknoirs of their own. So everything in the tier A category at this point is playing Dusknoir, and that's saying something about this format. Not a lot of people are saying like, this is the best format ever. People are saying with the introduction of like Dusknoir, they are having less fun in the format. I personally think it's very skill based, because sometimes you blow up a Dusknoir and the opponent can respond to it, meaning you've sacrificed the prize card and the prize rate doesn't go your way. Stuff like Blood Moon or Saluna is very cool as well, where you're able to blow up your own Dusknoir and then have immediately access to the Dusknoir. Something like, for example, blowing up a Dusknoir and then using Briar. Very fantastic indeed. Briar is actually in the Raging Bolt, in the Terapagos deck, in the Charizard deck, so Briar and Dusknoir, it's a Briar and Dusknoir world. Okay, moving forward, we're going to be talking about, I would say, Miraidon, put that in the B category. There was Glenn Bowens actually doing pretty well over at the Dortmund Regionals with that top 8 placement with the Miraidon, and it actually is coming true here with, of course, the new stadium card, 0 area under depth. You're gonna be able to widen your board all the way up to 8 bench Pokemon. That means Raikou V becomes more dangerous than ever before, and you can actually step down all of your bench hitters, whether it is Mew EX, Pheasantipity, Luminion, Squawkabilly, Miraidon. You can slap everything down on your bench right now, and if the opponent overlaps the stadium, you can simply rely on the effect that you can just discard some Pokemon from your bench, like Squawkabilly, Luminion, etc. So Miraidon is a very good deck when your generators are hitting. I don't think I'll be putting it higher than tier B, because in my opinion it has some trouble up against Blood Moons. It also sometimes cannot hit the numbers if they don't have the gussing capabilities. Like, for example, the Miraidon itself can only slap 220. With a Zapdos, you can slap 230. With something like a Vitality Band, that's 240, but that is a lot to ask for in my opinion. So sometimes when you're up against the Raging Bolt, it is not that great. Because you don't always get the one shot. And the same can be said for Terapagos. You will always need your Zapdos. Sometimes Zapdos is priced. You might think about adding in 2 Zapdos, but you don't want to be starting with them. So going back and forth, I would be putting Miraidon in tier B. Even though you do hit weakness against Palkia, you still have your Iron Hands to rely upon. But it's still a Miraidon deck at the end of the day, so you have to have some luck with your generators. Moving forward, Dragapult, Dusknoir. Yeah, I'm just going to be a little controversial, but I'll be still putting it in tier B, even though it won the Dortmund Regionals, and there's a good reason for that. I personally don't think, even though it on paper it looks very strong, I played a lot with Dragapult Dusknoir, and my opening hands seem to be just so clunked up. You're playing like you're playing no Pidgeot, so you cannot cherry pick anything you want. There is a lot of cards you can have in your opening hand that do not work. Dragapult, Dusknoir, yeah, some candies that you cannot use on your very first turn. So sometimes I just get out one Dreepy and they go after the Dreepy and the game's over. Also, there's a lot of Dusknoir in the format. Again, you're a stage 2 setup deck, meaning it has the same stuff that Charizard is dealing with, but the Charizard, when you get one Charizard out, is fine. One Dragapult is not always enough because the damage output is 206 on the bench. With Charizard, you can sell one shot into one shot, which is something the with the Dragapult you cannot do. So I still will put it in the tier B category. Yeah, sorry if you guys are like a really big fan of the Dragapult deck, but that's just my opinion. Also, a little disclaimer if you didn't know already, this is pretty much opinion based in combination with some results that we already saw. I'll be putting Gardevoir in tier C. I know, there's a lot of Gardevoir believers out there. Yeah, props to you for still hanging on to your bread and butter of the Gardevoir, but let's be honest. How many Dusknoir decks do you see here above the tier B and above categories? Exactly, that's way too many Dusknoirs for Gardevoir to handle. Gardevoir can sometimes squeeze out some wins left and right. You can use the Gravity Orb in combination with Screamtail, in combination with something like Iono to make sure the opponent is trapped while you just snipe. But the problem is, Terapagos can rely on Noctowl to get anything out. Charizard can get out Pidgeot to get anything out. Yeah, you see where this is going, right? So Gardevoir is gonna be punished because even though you could say like, haha, here I go. Yeah, I'm going second. We have the TM Evo. For all you know, the opponent went first, got out 2 Duskulls. Both your Curlias are gone, and your active Pokemon is also knocked out. Like everything's gone. So we're in a very scary format, and also the strength that Gardevoir used to have in the past, where they go for Iono, Counter Catcher, Screamtail, everything plays Phasandipity these days, so that also does not work anymore. So I'm afraid to say it, but I'll be putting it in the tier C category for now. The surprise for me is I'm going to be putting Gholdengo in the tier B category. It is not as bad as people claim it to be. We have Jelle van Kampen to thank for that with his wonderful performance once again at the Dortmund Regionals. Gholdengo here. It is actually not bad if you survive the first turn, because if you survive the first turn, your Gholdengos are pretty tanky. They can withstand hits from Terapagos. They can also start one-shotting other 2 prizers in the format, and you always have draw power with the coin bonus. The list also plays something like Palkia VSTAR, and with Prime Catcher and maybe sometimes even Cologne, you can do some sniping situations as well. A lot of decks have dropped down their Manaphy because of the high popularity of the Dusknoirs in list, because you say, why am I playing Manaphy when the opponent just Dusknoirs it anyhow? So there are definitely some things to think about. You want to re-add in Manaphy in your deck and something like Charizard, Dragapult, Gholdengo, or Gardevoir. Be my guest, but I think when Gholdengo deck goes first, has a white board, and then sets up to evolve everything, maybe with the Hyper Aroma Ace-Pack card, you can definitely go miles with this Gholdengo deck. And also against stuff like Raging Bolt, you most of the time will just start with only 1 prize Pokemon, turning that into 2 prize Pokemon, so you're going to be the first person taking 2 prizes. So note that down. Alright, moving forward, Lugia Archeops. I'll be putting this in tier A as well. As a Lugia player myself, I have played a lot of Lugia, let's be honest. I already have like almost 200 CP. Lugia is just a deck that if you can get to both Archeops in the discard pile by your second turn and evolve at the same time, you're gonna be golden, because summoning star for 2 Archeops in combination sometimes with a very early on Blood Moon or a very early on Iron Hands, depends on the matchup by the way, can win yourself tons of games. If you have a Chinchino line, you can also start using that. It all comes down to consistency. Also, Lugia is one of the decks that doesn't have that much issues with the fact of the amount of Dusknoir, even though sometimes Dusknoir can pop a Chinchino and your gift energy does not activate that way, and they can get rid of 2 of them at the same time. Because you come back with like the versatility with your Blood Moon attacker, with Lugia V-Star still being a viable attacker, as you can actually knock out Phasandipities quite easily, Teal Mask quite easily, Rotom Vs, Luminions, you name it. So Lugia can be an attacker in combination with Blood Moon, in combination with Chinchino, as well as Iron Hand. Sometimes people put in the Weirder in the deck as well to be a surprising factor as well. So yeah, Lugia, it's very strong indeed, but it lacks sometimes the consistency. And against stuff like Raging Bolt, you will need to get out 2 Lugias, and sometimes that doesn't happen. So tricky situation for sure, but it is definitely a very, very solid archetype still. Moving forward, we're going to be talking about Iron Thorns. I'll put that in the tier B category. I think it's a deck that is very matchup roulette dependent. And with Iron Thorns, you could say like, oh, I'm going to be instantly winning against Lugia. Then you're correct. If you're expecting tons of Lugia, that's the play. Against Charizard with the Crushing Hammers, you should have enough. I think you now should add in Enhanced Hammers to have yourself a little bit of a better time against Terapagos based decks. And yeah, also imagine opening up Iron Thorns, you're up against Miraidon, they cannot tandem units. So there is a lot of situations where, of course, Iron Thorns is great. You could also hit weakness against Palkia VSTAR, so... But it's polarized, the matchup. So Raging Bolt, I think, is an unfavorable matchup when they play it correctly. And yeah, there's that. So you have to be afraid of those indeed. Alright, let's move on. Let's talk about Klawf Electrode. I'll put that in the tier C category. People are just gonna be saying, oh, but Klawf Electrode did really well at the Louisville Regionals over in Brazil. Yes, you are right. But the thing is that I don't know what kind of archetypes they faced. You could have like a very good point because you're going to be using the Binding, Mochi, Radiant, Hisuian, Sneasler and stuff to make sure you hit the Raging Bolts for enough damage. But it takes a lot from the deck to do that. And also sometimes you have to slap down Squack ability, which is a 2-prizer. You could lead off with a Hisuian Electrode V and with stuff like the Dusknoir. There could be definitely some situations where they can actually get rid of your Brute Bonnet while getting rid of your active. Sometimes you don't even find your double turbo energy. I will be putting it in tier C. It's a very solid one prize deck in at most. So yeah, I'll be putting it here. Is it better than Gardevoir? Probably not, so let's just change that around. Okay, talking about the tier D deck. Chien-Pao, Excalibur, nothing new under the sun here. Chien-Pao is one of those decks that has terrible matchups all around, and it is needing way too much to do the stuff that other decks do way better. It also doesn't help that like most of the top decks are playing Dusknoir, meaning your Frigibacks have never been that unsafe. Definitely because people can go Dusknoir, I'm knocking out Frigibacks, I'm gonna go for Prime Catcher or Counter Catcher, and I'm gonna knock out your Excalibur, and boom! Ooh, what do you do now? Sometimes like decks like Terapagos could slap down 2 Buffalans and they have way too much HP for you to deal with. Oh, I need so many energies and I don't find them in time. Yeah. I think it's a nail in the coffin. Chien-Pao hasn't been performing all too well, and that's where we're sticking around with it. Alright, then Lost Box, I'll put that in the tier C category. Lost Box is a little bit better than it used to be. Because I could say like not a lot of Regidrago VSTAR decks. It's not like it's a World Championships where it's like 27% of the meta. That's not the case. Yeah, that's the only deck playing Kiran, by the way, and that gives Lost Box a little bit of time to do some stuff. Like if you have the Radiant Zard, for example, or a Blood Moon can deal with Raging Bolt. You can also add in some fighting stuff. I would see something like, which one? Ogie Dogie could be put in the Lost Zone boxes to deal with stuff like Terapagos, for example. Also, you hit weakness against Rotom, you hit weakness against Raikou, Miraidon. So there's a lot of things to love about playing a Lost Box, counter box with some fighting stuff in there as well. So I'll put it in tier C for now. Moving forward, we're going to have to actually expand the roster a little bit so you guys can check along with me. All right, let's do that first. Because, yeah, this actually is a format where there's still a lot of decks viable. I wonder when the rotation will actually hit. Because, yeah, it's been a while. Like, Lugia has been going crazy ever since it got released in Silver Tempest. And we are actually still playing with Lugia after all this time. And that actually shouldn't be the case because cards like that should have been rotated a long time ago. So, yeah. Moving forward, let's talk about control. I'll be putting Pidgeot control in tier B. Although Pidgeot control, yeah, there is definitely, if you have control-ish cards, you can do a lot of crazy stuff for sure. Maybe putting Dragapult a little bit higher like this, Gholdengo right there, yeah, seems fine. So control, if you have the cards like, for example, Triple Mimikyu, can win yourself matchups. You can be playing stuff like, for example, the one and only Sandshrew to protect yourself from the opponents playing like Palpad to regain stuff. You could be playing a Snorlax block in the Pidgeot control list. You could be playing Mawile. You could be playing the Wellspring Ogerpon to trap opponents as well. There's the Janicek, which can be put in the list so you can block Ace-Pack cards from being played. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with Pidgeot control. If you can get your Pidgeot out in time with all these Dusknoirs, it's a little bit tricky, but there's definitely some stuff to do. Regidrago, I also put that in tier A. Regidrago is still great. A lot of people are cutting down their mana fees, and they are punished for it quite ridiculously. I wonder if I should put anything else in tier S if I'm taking a look at it. I could put Terapagos, Dusknoir in tier S, but it's a little bit too soon for that. So I'm happy with how it is right now. I think Raging Bolt is just that good because it can donk people, so that's why I'm putting Raging Bolt in tier S as the only deck right there. But I could still see like these other decks. I could see Palkia getting all the way to S status as well as Terapagos, but it all comes down to the next couple of regionals to see how good they're actually developing. But for now, Regidrago, it does come back with a lot of crazy attackers. So you have, of course, Giratina VSTAR 280 damage output. You have the Kyurem 110 to 3 targets. You can also maybe add in Noivern back in the deck to just have a little bit of a better time against stuff like Terapagos, Miraidon, etc. So, but if you're including Noivern back into your list, I would suggest adding in Scoop Up Cyclone as the ace pack card of choice. That could be something you can try out. I expect a little bit less Zard, and because there's so many Dusknoirs running around. But yeah, Regidrago is also one of those decks, like imagine when nobody's playing Manaphy and you're going first, a turn 2 Kyurem, and you can get rid of like Duskulls and all that. You can even do that with the Dragapult Phantom Dive attack as well. So it's still around. It's a toolbox of dragons. What's there not to love? Okay, I'll be putting the Snorlax block deck over in the middle of tier B. That's where we're adding it because of the fact that Snorlax block is always one of those decks you don't love to see it unless you're playing Lugia, because Snorlax block can just instantly win games if you start with a bench sitter and your switch outs are pressed. Note to self is that a lot of Dusknoirs are around, so. But the cool thing is that Dusknoir does not one-shot a Snorlax, so you're a little bit safe on that. But they can use the Dusknoirs against your Mimikyu, so be careful. But yeah, Snorlax block in the middle of tier B. It is always around until it will rotate. Turbo Roaring Moon, a little bit less good positioned in my opinion. I'll be putting it tier C. The reason for it is that, yeah, a lot of Dusclopses can just blow up your Turbo, actually your Roaring Moon after you use Frenzied Gouging. And that's not cool because then you can take 4 prizes at once, and that's something I really don't like with this. Your Squawkabilly is a liability. Sometimes on your bench there's even a Mew EX that could be a threat as well. So I'll just put it in tier C. It did well at the World Championships, but now the Dusknoir hype is finally catching on, and I'll put it down a tier lower. Then Palkia Noctowl, probably a little bit less good than the Palkia Dusknoir, but still good enough to be put itself into tier B. With the consistency of Noctowl, you can get any cards you want, so combinations to get yourself Prime Catch Cologne have never been easier. You can also play in some vessels and maybe like a couple of Grass Energy, so you can attack on the very first turn using an Iron Leaves, for example. There is also the capabilities of adding in a thinner line of Dusknoir and focusing more on Terapagos as a secondary attacker, so lots of things possible. I did see 2 of these lists during my run at the Dortmund Regionals, and I thought they were really impressive, so I'll put it at the tier B category. And last but not least is another Dragapult list, but then with Pidgeot. I'll put it in the same tier as the Dragapult list with Dusknoir. I think both of them have a little bit of the same thing going. As the fact is that I think they're a little bit clunky, but when they get it off, oh boy, are they incredible. So that's why I can never put them higher than this. So this is my tier list currently for the upcoming regionals. Like, I could still see Terapagos going to tier S. I could still see Palkia Dusknoir going to tier S, but if you're seeing this as a tier list as the best decks in the format, in this format it is actually making sense. So you should take a look at everything that is tier A and above, because those are the decks you will see most oftenly at your upcoming events. Make sure you have an answer to them. Make sure you tested the matchups and you know what your lines of play are, and you should be doing fine at the regionals. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know by rocking the hell out of the like button. It helps out ridiculously, super effective. And also let me know in the comments down below what your favorite deck is in this current format. Is it not even on the list? Are you one of those people that only plays rogue decks? Let me know down below in the comments, and let's get a discussion started left and right. Also check out the sponsors that make the videos possible. PokemonStore.com for your TCG Live code card needs. You can get 5% off using the coupon ZapdosTCG. Cardmarket.com for European players, where you're able to buy and sell cards to people all across Europe. Use the referral name ZapdosTCG and you're helping out the channel ridiculously. DragonShield.com for your sleeves, binders, deck boxes. They are the best brand to protect your beautiful cards, and you can get 5% off using the coupon ZAPDOS5. Definitely do so, link down below. And last but not least, TC Evolutions for your damage counters. They have a multiplier of 70, which is very great for damage counters, as well as ability tokens, VSTAR tokens, you name it. You can get 10% off if you use the coupon ZAPDOSTCG. So definitely check it out and have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. Good luck at Louisville, at Lille Regionals, or at your upcoming League Challenge or League Cup. This was ZAPDOSTCG, and I am signing out. Peace.